So, the XK8 is here and it's time to get stuck in. I've got my job list ready to go. Unfortunately, that's not quite the full picture and the finished article is going to be a little way off just yet. It's just as well then that blind optimism happens to be a strong suit of mine, so I'm going to ignore any notion of doing things properly and crack on with the bare minimum just to get this car going. It may not be pretty and it's almost certainly not going to be fast, but if we can get this car finished this year in any form, I'm going to consider that a victory. Let's get started. I've decided that I'm going to start back here, and one of the more pressing concerns is the lack of battery, and I want to try and locate this as far back as possible for better weight distribution. There's also an ever so slight lack of floor in here. This aluminium panel that's got loads of bits on it is going to be the boot floor. That won't be weight bearing on its own and is going to want bracing, so I'd like to try and brace it across the width of the boot and then probably use those braces to pick up a battery mount off of and extend the main cables to the battery, and hopefully we can pick up something that will do the job and get this boot floor stuck in. A bit of difficulty is working out what kind of bracing to use. I'm thinking just L-shaped strips of steel will do the job nicely, but fixing them to the car in such a way as to have good structural rigidity. My ideal go-to would be a cross brace. That's just probably the best form of bracing to apply here. Problem being, battery mounting is going to require another brace added then somewhere. They won't be able to bolt a battery straight into a cross brace. If I went for two vertical strips running back across the car at the width of the battery, they'd be nice and easy to apply a strap to or something to hold the battery in. The problem I've got there is having the girthage of steel to the front and rear to provide a good solid mounting point. Not that much really. Cross bracing I could pick up off these corners which are slightly gusseted, which would be good and strong. Likewise, horizontally bracing, well, I think that's straight out because there's not that good a material to bolt the braces into, and also I want to bring the battery backwards and away from all of this because most of that is gonna stay where it is even if I tidy it up a bit. Space is getting to be a bit of a premium there. So a horizontal brace, I'd end up with the battery sat in the middle of the aluminium, which, nah, the braces are going to be strong, but not that bloody strong. I still want, ideally, the battery to end up back here somewhere, as close as possible to the rear of the car. Nice solid steel, and then I can use the rear of the car and the bracing to support the weight of the battery and strap it in. Yeah, tricky one. Time to cut the boot floor to size. Well, it's taken about 400 test fits, in, out, shave a bit, in, out, shave a bit, which is no joke when it comes to manoeuvring this bit of aluminium, but the boot floor is almost to shape now, and it looks about right. Right, so that's the boot floor cut to size and the braces made up. These are spaced so as to accommodate the battery slap bang in the middle. I'm only using a small battery, the same type as is in my XJS, just for a bit of commonality. If I keep a spare, it'll work for both cars, sort of thing. Which is a little bit unfortunate because it's quite narrow. To support the floor better, these would be a little bit better off being a tiny bit further outboards, but I don't think it's too big a deal really. These should do just fine. I also collected another crucial ingredient the other day. This weighs 1,000,000 tons, unlike this. It's never going to be as light as that, but we can make it lighter, and then we can put these in. Aha! Well, now I'm paying a visit to the place where things come to sit and look sorry for themselves. We've got the big race truck here. I'm just shuffling some wheels about and looking very sorry for itself. My dear old XJS, God bless it. Still got the birthday banner on for the other half. Oh dear. I've had some good news about the XJS today. We've got an engine, and all being well, this is going to get shipped off to Powerbell for a bit of an intensive, and it's going to return with a new engine, hopefully a few other goodies, and who knows, we may even have this ready in time for the start of the season. Everything crossed for that. Also sat here and looking perhaps the most sorry for itself of anything. This was actually chucked in with the race car deal as a donor car, because it's quite a low mileage road car with a good engine, good transmission, prop diff, all that sort of stuff. It had been kept to lend, but actually with the direction I want to go with the race car, this isn't any good for any of that. It could lend some bodywork, but actually the bodywork's really good, and I don't want to smash any of it up, especially when these are sat in breakers yards everywhere and you can get hold of cheap knackered bits to plonk on your race car. So what I've got here is lots of birds, but also a donor car that can't really donate anything, and I think this could go back on the road. There are a few minor issues to overcome to get that done, and it's got a long old way to go, but I reckon we could make a road car out of this. It's too good to scrap, and I've never actually had a Jaguar as a road car at all, of any sort. The XK8 probably is my favourite, well the XKR is, but I can make do, I'm not fussy. I'd love to have this as a nice little smoker to rot around in. Priorities are elsewhere at the moment, but yeah, this is going to be a fun little project too. Steve Dowell drops a video today about his XKR, and yeah, that man's living the life I wish I could live. He's got the facilities and he's got the know-how to do things properly, and I wish I could build my XK8 like he's building his XKR. Maybe one day. For the moment, I'm just making do and mending whatever I can get hold of for 20p, garnished with a couple of cable ties. That's how my XK8's going to be. But yeah, Steve's video is definitely worth a watch. The man's awesome and his build is awesome. I'm going to pop a link to his video somewhere up here, and I highly recommend that you go and watch that, because that is how to do it properly. He mentions in that video, Steve, that he's an engineer first and a racing driver second. I've definitely the opposite way around. I am definitely a racing driver first and an engineer second. In fact, I could barely engineer a car at all. I'm just doing what I can do to get on the grid as cheaply as possible, which is why my cars break all the time and don't get finished, and they're mostly sat around here doing nothing. There's very few advantages in life to being a short ass, but one of them is that I'm not going to need the quick release steering boss that had been ordered, which turned out to be the wrong size. Yeah, it's a nice thing to have, and it, you know, makes it all seem a bit more like a race car, I suppose, but I'm only little and I've got no problem jumping over cage bars and under steering wheels, so one of the immediate gratification jobs I can do is to bolt the steering wheel straight on. Well, a complete guess as to where steering wheel centred was going to be, because the car had lock on it. Just sort of picked some bolts and threw it on, and that looks like wheel straight to me. Nailed it. What a stroke of luck. Anyway, I've thrown a seat in here just to test out the driving position, and I reckon it's alright. I reckon it's not too bad. And the thing that I was worried about was without the additional boss on there, whether the indicator stalk and windscreen wiper stalk would be too close for comfort. Transpires, no, they're okay. They're reasonably out of the way. I think I could do a bit of arm twirling without smashing them, which is good, because it's all original at the minute, so if I can keep those stalks, that just makes life a bit easier, and means that the wheel doesn't actually need to come off again. It could probably just stay on there now. Oil cooler mounting is another head scratcher. The car's had this big full width oil cooler fitted. Nice bit of kit. Might as well keep it, because that is going to do the world of good. Having such a great big amount of cooling can't be a bad thing. And it's all plumbed in now, and it's probably easiest just to get it mounted and run with it, at least from the start. It's sort of just floating in free air at the minute, so I'm not too sure what to do. What I'm thinking is bolting a plate to the very front of what's showing of the chassis here, in front of the radiator. Yeah, big plate across there, nice big chunky steel, and then from that plate running 2 braces from the mounting holes on the bottom. These mounts here are mirrored on the bottom. I think are they damped as well? Are they rubber? No, they're not. Anyway, yeah, and then running 2 sort of big, sort of squared off C shaped brackets from the bottom mount right up around the back of the oil cooler to the top, to hold it nice and rigid at the top as well. Well, here's an exciting moment. I haven't actually really seen this car run, apart from just briefly to load it and unload it. It didn't have a battery when it turned up, so I haven't been able to start it and see what's what. But now, as of recent developments, we're on. So, I think it's quite clear the garage needs a reorganised. No, really, you don't need that much space to do race car stuff, really. The car was sort of pushed in with no power and no steering wheel, so it sort of just went where it landed, but we can try and tidy things up a bit if we get it a bit more parallel and a bit neater and make it a bit easier to work. So with that being the case, it's time to fire her up and give her a shuffle. Oh, that's what we do it for. That is the bollocks. So, not that much to report really, but if the sound of that V8 running with no cats and no silencers hasn't brought at least a little bit of joy to your day, then I do have to pose the question, have you actually got a soul? That thing sounds awesome. Anyway, so the XK8 is rumbling along slowly, as is pretty much everything else. But the big news is that the XJS now has an engine acquired and could be turned around in time for the start of the year. I'm really hoping so. We'll see.